50 years.
Wow.
Spend the night on the train.
And I imagine a briefcase full of hot sauce.
It was the way it was.
So many questions.
Well, get ready for a long road.
What's $200,000 look like?
Boy, you really get me with these year questions.
You're listening to The Hot Sauce Show, the place to meet hot sauce makers and enthusiasts. Let's jump right in. Hey everyone, welcome to The Hot Sauce Show. My name is Zach, I am your host. Today we have a very, very special icon in the hot sauce world, Cy Brown, CEO of Bruce Foods and the creator of the original Louisiana Hot Sauce. Cy, thanks for having us out today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Zach. It's a pleasure to get to know you and be with you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for inviting us out to your property here in New Iberia. This is spectacular and a treat I've been looking forward to for months. So thank you again.
Thank you very much and welcome. We're very delighted to have you here and hope you make this like the first of many visits.
Wonderful.
And yeah, we love talking hot sauce and meeting new friends and seeing the hot sauce industry as it is now and what it's going to be in the future. It's really exciting. And we remember the past and all of the baby steps that we took growing up. Actually, I've been in this business for 70 years.
70. Wow.
And where we started, I'll tell you what, I mean, I wasn't in short pants, but it was damn close. And so we have some interesting experiences. And, you know, when we started, and of course our history at Bruce Foods is we made our own mash and we did the whole thing from A to Z to, you know, put it on the shelf. And so we knew the farmers that we dealt with to make our sauce, Louisiana Hot Sauce. We dealt with them directly. I did personally. And they were basically a lot of small farmers. In those days, I mean, the industry was extremely small. And so our volume in terms of tonnage of peppers and everything that we were processing and everything was early stages. And, you know, we had a pretty good sized operation as it goes today when you have some people starting literally in their kitchen. Mm-hmm. We were a little above that, but not too far. And so to do the whole thing from peppers to sauces and, you know, put it on the market actually in the supermarkets and the grocery stores, you know, was a pretty involved process. But in that stage, when we first started, we were doing the whole thing from actually meeting the farmers, the guys that actually picked the peppers. We made our own seed, and we were involved in the experimentation of inventing and creating new pepper varieties and everything. The types of pepper cultivation and seed breeding and everything, we were involved in all of that. And I know a lot of people today are still involved in that, and this is great because that's what moves the industry forward. But to see the sophistication today compared to what it was in the past when we first started is what's really enjoyable to reminisce on and to see, and hopefully, you know, pass on that thing and that knowledge to others that are getting in the industry right now and seeing what a great future you have in terms of how this industry can continue to grow and what it can really wind up being in the future, because people just love hot sauce and they love hot peppers, and I don't see any slowdown or any diminishing in the interest and the excitement about peppers and hot sauce. Mm-hmm. It's all is big, and it's even bigger than it was when I started, and that growth is just wonderful. And it's inspirational, actually. So, you know, hats off to all of you guys, you know, creating a record of that. And what you're doing to record the history of it or pieces of that history to put the whole picture together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, walk me through, because I don't really know the story, and I don't think a lot of these newer people in the industry know the story at all. So walk me through, so you've been in the industry 70 years. So when you started, I'm just so many questions, but you're making hot sauce, and hot sauce, as you just said, was nothing like it was what it is today. So was this something you were making and you had to really sell people and know this is good, or how did that, this is what, the 60s?
Yeah, 50s.
50s, okay.
Yeah, right, 53.
And so pardon me, is there any spicy food culture in this part of the country at all? Or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We had some very, very good companies here, and in fact, they were right into Iberia. We had McElhenney, of course. They were across town, and then there was Frank's. Actually, they had a bulk plant here in New Iberia where they collected their peppers, and they made mash here, and then they shipped the mash from here in New Iberia up to Cincinnati, where they did all the processing, the bottling, and the shipping to the retail stores. So here in town, I mean, there was McElhenney, Frank's, and Bruce Foods.
And Bruce Foods, and then Crystal came a little later?
Yeah, well, Crystal was a little later, but of course they're in New Orleans, and they would buy peppers out here from the local farmers, some of which were the same peppers, same growers that we used, but for the most part, we had our growers and they had theirs. And but Crystal was located in New Orleans.
And the McElhenney was Tabasco peppers,
right.
And then what peppers was everyone else using, or what were some of the other peppers?
Well, that was the thing. We had a few products that were actually made with Tabascos, but our big thing was cayenne. And we just love the cayenne pepper and the flavor and the qualities of that pepper, that we call it a fruit, and are so wonderful. I mean, the taste, the heat, and all is just a delicious pepper. And McElhenney, of course, is strictly Tabasco, or was at the time. They have some other products now. But in the most part, we really took the cayenne, and then later Crystal took they have a cayenne-based sauce also, and made that as popular as it is today. And it's the base of the pepper blend that we're using now with other pepper varieties that have been created since we were first in business. A lot of the things and a big part of the progress in the pepper industry is all of these new things that have been brought to market and to be put into products and processes and ingredients to build out what sauces that we're marketing today in new products. For the most part, the major brands really, and that's where I am today, is most of the major brands haven't really done product line refreshes, and that is to take their product, the basic original formulas and products, and then combine them with other new ingredients or processes that are available and have been developed in the last 50 years. I'm talking 50 years now, and developed them into maybe new products. Well, in this case, we've got several new products that are the result of us using these new pepper varieties, new processes and ingredients that is available today, that are available today.
So what's an example of a process that we have today that we didn't have 50 years ago, or a couple examples?
Well, the big thing is making a pepper sauce with no fermentation. And that's being done today.
And can I pause you right there? Why do you need a ferment, or why did you need a ferment?
Well, that's to create shelf life,
okay.
And that's to make what we call stability, or shelf stability. So that was a part of that. And so to crack the code to, replace that and create a whole new flavor and things like that are what the new exciting developments are in today's pepper industry.
So what has changed? Because I was always under the assumption it was the acidity and the pH level that got you the shelf life. Is there something more that the fermentation provides?
No, I mean, those are the things, that's the key to it. The things that you just mentioned, you're absolutely right with what you're saying. And so, but it's how you get to those points.
Gotcha.
That is the changing element in it.
Yeah. Very, very cool. So you 50s, 60s, you're making hot sauce, and earlier today, before we started the cameras, you were telling me about your first bottling plant, if we can call it a plant. Can you talk us through that again? I think that was really fascinating.
Yeah, right. Well, first of all of the parts of the plant were handmade, and basically we made well, you know, some of the things are made by others, but we made a lot of the actual machines that were used in the manufacturing process. We made them by hand, such as we had a plant that had only 2 electric motors in it, and they ran everything that was being done on a continuous basis. We ran everything from those 2 motors, and we would basically just move the motors around to different locations or different points of activity where the manufacturing was being done, or maybe switch the belt from this line to that machine. And so we were using a lot of creative things, and then as far as using the electrical components in manufacturing, but we used a lot of gravity. And so, for example, in the filler that we had, the filler was basically a tank, actual cypress water cistern, where we catch the rainfall. It goes in the cistern, and that was our water supply. That's how we used to drink and get water.
So the early hot sauce was collected rainwater.
Well, no. The early hot sauce was put in. We'd make the hot sauce, or part of it. This is part of the manufacturing process. It had to be collected in a tank, a holding tank, where it goes into the bottles. And so now we had, you know, one of these electric motors that we had connected to the pump that would actually take the sauce that we would make and deliver it by pump up to the cistern. And then we had holes drilled into the side of the wooden cistern, and then put rubber surgical tubes there so that once the sauce was in the cistern, it could gravity flow down to the bottles that were actually put into the orifice of the bottle by hand. And then we would take it from then. When it was full, the bottles were full, we'd move the rubber tube, the fill tube, to the next bottle, to the next bottle, and everything all by hand. And then we had another lady there that would take a cap and screw the cap on the bottle by hand. And then the next lady would move these bottles down in a wooden crate that would move by hand to the next station, where, you know, first we'd fill the bottles, then we would screw the cap on by hand, and then once the cap was tight, and we would have another lady that would take the labels off. We had a system of labeling where we laid down a newspaper, and then we had a paintbrush that was in a bucket of paste that we would spread the paste on the newspaper, and then we would stick the labels on the paste, and then pick the label up by hand and put it on the bottle by hand. And that's why the first labels that we had were round, because they were never straight. They had rounded edges, so that, yeah. And so that was it, yeah. Then, of course, when these machines became available, now they had machines, but we couldn't afford them.
Sure.
And so we would actually label everything by hand, and then the rest, as I said. But yeah, those were, you know, some of the funny things that would go on. But the fact of the matter is that there are ways that people, you know, people look at these situations where they're kind of hopeless, and they figure, it just costs millions of dollars to get, you know, into a business or anything. And I tell these young entrepreneurs that want to have a hot sauce business or want to have another kind of business, not to be concerned about, you know, these high dollar figures that you hear of today, where it costs $1 billion to do this, or at least $1 million to do that and everything. Don't be concerned about that, because you can do things on a small scale by hand with very little capital. And as long as you have a good idea and a great product, people will buy it, and then you gradually build up a large enough reserve of capital to actually afford to do something that's really what we call capital intensive.
Mm-hmm.
And
so let's go back to the newspaper, the labels, all of that era. So this is what, 1960, late 50s?
Yeah, I mean, it's the mid 1950s.
So so the sauce is made, it's labeled, it's in the wooden crates. You know, today we go to markets, we have Amazon, we have Fair, all those things. Right. You guys obviously we had markets but didn't have those other things. The sauce is in the crate. What happens next? Are you delivering to stores? Are you doing markets? Are you how are you selling it?
Yeah, well, we're selling it basically to restaurants, and we're selling it to retail stores, and delivering it. Not a lot of truckload orders, but you know, mostly, you know, 50, 100 case orders and things like that to grocery stores. And so there were wholesalers. I mean, the big thing then was that we had a layer of distribution, in fact, a couple of them that aren't in existence anymore, because there's been so much development in direct to consumer today, which takes out several layers of distribution, such as wholesalers and so forth. So, you know, in those days, we just had more customers and a more complicated supply chain. And so, not a bigger one, it was a smaller supply chain, but there were more steps in getting your product on the grocery shelf for the consumer. So obviously there was no Amazon, there was no, and there were more retailers, there were more wholesalers, and we had to supply each one of those to get, yeah, right. And then of course we went into international, which offered a number of other challenges to get to where your customer was ultimately located and could buy your product. And so that's kind of another story in itself. But by and large, it was just a little more complicated. The process took a little bit longer, and that was why you know, it took so many years to get to where you know, the business was large enough to actually be sellable.
Sure. So what was the breadth and scope in the early 60s of Louisiana Hot Sauce? Were you on the East Coast or West Coast? Were you really in Louisiana, the Mississippi Valley? How far had you expanded at that point?
Well, our biggest market overall was Chicago.
Chicago?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, well, it was just because of the nature of the people there. And you had a lot of people from the South there. And the backbone of our business was basically people from the South. And for that matter, the people of African descent. And you know, we had our slogan, was one drop does it. And to be honest, I put that together, and that was a slogan that people latched on to. And the people in Chicago, for a long time, there were another couple of, people in Chicago loved Tabasco, and they liked Frank's. But Louisiana Hot Sauce was also very popular, and that was where one drop, they used to call us one drop.
One drop.
In Chicago, and that was our slogan. And that to them really meant something. And they'd put one drop on everything.
Wow.
And so that's why we put it on the label. And I'm just amazed today. Of course, unfortunately, we sold the brand to some other people who, very good people, very intelligent and everything else, but I don't know for the life of me why they took the one drop slogan off the label.
Yeah.
And now maybe they're going to put it back on because they have new owners now. And so, to me, that said it all. And, it's just one of the things. But the point is, how did we grow the business? You always have to have a focal point and, a target customer. And Chicago was ours, and we grew out from there. Of course, Louisiana, we didn't have to educate anybody in Louisiana. They knew what hot sauce was to start with because everybody grew up with it, and they're exposed to pepper. And it was in everybody's recipes, and it was a fait accompli. We had to pretty much convince everybody, particularly up north, that hot sauce was worth trying. And of course, the rest is history. Once they tried it, and they thought, hey, this does, make that bland food really come to life.
Sure.
And enjoy your meal that much more.
So 1965, trying to sell more hot sauce in Chicago, do you pick up the phone and call Chicago restaurants and say, hey, I'd like to drop this off as a sample, or how did you get that going?
No, well, what we did was displays.
Displays, okay.
Point of purchase, yeah. And
in retail grocery.
Right,
Okay.
right, yeah. And we looked for these, high volume stores, and we'd build displays.
And was there any hot sauce competition in those stores when you?
Absolutely.
There was.
Yeah, we had a lot of them. We, of course, had to take business away from everybody.
Sure.
When we got started. And so there were other good brands, good companies there. And some of them we knew personally. They were friends. And so, but we just felt like, they had good products, and certain people liked some of their characteristics for their product. And ours was different. And we offered a change. And some people really took to our products and that changed, and others, stuck with some of those other brands. They didn't necessarily like or switch to our product. So, but we carved out by selling one bottle at a time, we carved out enough fans and consumers of our product to ultimately, achieve the volume that we were enjoying in the later years.
So you became CEO in 1972?
Well, no, I was really, it was a little bit before that, but for the most part, yeah, that's about right.
And what did you do to put your foot on the gas with the company?
Travel. To tell you, I lived out of a suitcase. And so it was all handshaking. It's just almost like being in a politician's. So it is literally, you have to go out and see the people, and and that's top down, from the retail stores to the presidents of those retail stores, owners of them, and that, in the case of it's a chain, you got to know not necessarily every one of them did I meet, but I met one hell of a lot of them, and the short answer to your question, how did we do it? We got on a either an airplane or in a car or in a train. And of course, when I started, we didn't have the airline industry like what we have today. And so we had to take the train. And the other reason why we developed Chicago really well is because we had a train that went from New Orleans to Chicago. And it was an overnight trip. It was called the Panama Limited. That was the name of the train. It was Illinois Central Railroad.
Pre-Amtrak days.
Pre-Amtrak, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. And so my mother would drive me to New Orleans, drop me off. I didn't have a car.
And how old are you at this point?
Well, I am, let's see, I'm 16.
16?
Yeah. And so, yeah, she drove me to New Orleans. And yeah, I'd get on the Panama Limited, excuse me. And we have an overnight trip. I'd buy a ticket that had a sleeper. And so I'd spend the night on the train. Next morning I'd wake up in Chicago and I'd go call on stores. And that's it.
And I imagine a briefcase full of hot sauce.
Yeah, yeah. And so then later, I mean, I did that for a number of years. And now that's why I was in high school, then I got a scholarship to Tulane, and I went through Tulane, and then I got I was working my way through all of those stages. And then, of course, I went into the Navy. I got a commission from being in Tulane, and I went supply. I got a commission, and so they asked me what I wanted to be, or what I wanted to do when I graduated. Well, first I graduated from Tulane, then went in the Navy, and then I got, they sent me to finance school, Navy Supply and Finance School, and went and did that. And they said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be on a ship home ported in the West Coast, and I want a ship that travels a lot. And at the time I was single, and then I got just what I asked for. And in fact, I've been really lucky. I got almost everything that I ever asked for.
Wow.
And so I was in the Navy, and I was Supply Corps, so I was able to get our hot sauce on the ship. And we had 200-man crew on the ship, and we carried troops. We carried
supply ship.
No, it was a transport.
Transport, okay.
And no, we were surface transport for the Pacific, for the military, which was also for the government. And we took all of the troops and military dependents and service personnel, such as school teachers, secretaries, and everybody for the bases in the Far East. We'd go from every month. We were on 30-day turnarounds, we called it. And we would go start off in San Francisco, and then go to Honolulu, and then go from there, depending on whether we were going to the northern route or the southern route. We would go with a destination of Yokohama, Japan, almost always. And then we go to Yokohama, and we go to Korea, to Incheon, Korea. And then if we went southern route, we would go to Yokohama first, and then down to either Taiwan or to Okinawa or Guam, depending on where we were going to be dropping off soldiers, sailors, secretaries, school teachers, whatever it was. And that's what I did. And I did that for a couple of years, and I was in charge of all of the money on the ship. In those days, we paid in cash. I paid all the crew in cash once a month, and they'd line up at my office, and I'd count out whatever it was. Even the captain would come to my office to get paid, and I told him, I said, Captain, no, you don't have to do that anymore. I'm going to send an envelope there up to your cabin, and I'll pay you. But you don't have to get that line anymore, because that line was 200 people, and it took a while.
Wow. Yeah. And who was running hot sauce here Was there a break in the business?
Yeah, well, I had two brothers.
Okay.
And they were involved in it, very involved. And my hat's off to my two brothers because they were in the same business with me, and they deserve as much or more credit than I do in terms of us developing the business and making it a success. Because, we used to call it the shop. And they would take care of the shop, and I did my share of taking care of the shop, but I mainly got out and sold it. And so I was in charge of the marketing and the sales, and whatever the shop needed, I would do that. And so, but they took good care of the shop, and that's how it worked.
Now, did you ever connect the dots with the hot sauce and your military service? Did that ever cross paths?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And now, as far as the military is concerned, I mean, they had strict rules on how the product was purchased and what you had to do to qualify to get an order or a contract, whatever you wanted to call it, and whatever the situation was in terms of their supply arrangement. But we did introduce a lot of people on the ship. We just happened to have a few bottles over there. Mm-hmm. And a few people tried it out and liked it. So anyhow, we had eggs for breakfast, and I tell you what, you gotta have hot sauce if you can eat eggs.
Yes.
So so that went well. So every step of the way, I mean, it was selling hot sauce.
So out of the service, 70s, 80s, tell me about that time period with the business.
Well, that was an exciting time because, the business was growing, and people were beginning to understand hot sauce more, and transportation was improving. And, we had some airline activity, and passenger airplanes were being expanded, growing, and going into service more to service cities. Mm. So at the time, I learned how to fly. I didn't have a position flying job in the Navy, but I learned how to fly right out of the Navy. That's when I was traveling more, and so we bought a plane. And so I would fly to Chicago, fly to Miami, fly to Dallas, Houston, everywhere. So I was flying. And that was fun. And we worked that pretty well. And so we also had commercial airlines, because I wasn't going to fly at the time. First plane we bought was a Beach Bonanza. And that was 190 knots, 165. And so we're not going to California in that thing.
Sure.
And so, we would actually go what we called commercial on a lot of trips. And so, we'd fly our own plane to Miami and everything else. Of course, later we had a beach, we start off with a single engine, then we got a Beach Baron, which was twin engine, and then we got a King Air, and then we got a Citation, and so we had a long history of flying, and we had 3 airplanes when we wound up and finished. But travel was a big part of my life, and so that's how we grew the business, and we just went on from there. Enjoyed every minute of it.
Wow.
Just like the Navy, I mean, I enjoyed every minute in the Navy. I was really lucky. We had good people, a lot of structure. I mean, everybody was in line. I can tell you, we had a brig on the ship, and if you got out of line, your butt was in the brig. I can tell you. In fact, when we'd go to Okinawa, I loved the Marines. We brought the Marines to the Far East all over. And of course the Army and everybody else that had to go in the military. But when we'd go to Okinawa, then we'd go course, we were bringing them to Okinawa and taking them back from Okinawa. We were doing a rotation for everybody in the military. And so the brig on the ship was always, when we got out of Okinawa, the brig was full. They must have had some mean captain down there, because I can tell you, we had so many people in the brig, they couldn't all sleep. We didn't have enough beds for everybody that was in the brig.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so we had to put them in shifts to sleep. And so when they weren't sleeping, we'd have to make them run around the ship. We had a route on the ship so they could jog, but they had to stay awake, but we couldn't leave them alone. So we made them run around the ship, and we could kind of contain them that way.
Wow.
And these were some great young guys. And so what the hell, I don't know how they got in trouble to get locked up like that. But boy, I tell you what, they were locked up. Of course, in those days, I was threatened. I was in charge of $250,000 in cash at all times in my safe on the ship to do what I needed to do to pay for stuff in the ship store and pay for just the crew's salaries or wages.
And why was it cash? Just because that was what that was easier for them to then use, basically, than checks?
It just was the way it was. And there's so many things about the Navy at that point in time that was what was available. That was before, we didn't have any computers. And there was no electronic ETF or anything, electronic transfers or anything like that. It was all cash. I had a 250 grand, and when I had to replenish it every month. So when we'd go into port, I would have to make an appointment with the bank, and it was pre-selected what bank was approved by the military. And I would make an appointment with them and tell them how much I needed, because I didn't always need the exact same amount. So I'd tell them I needed 200 or 150 or 180, whatever it was that I was short that I would need for the crew to be paid and other obligations for the ship to be satisfied. That was a cash transaction. So I would order the cash, and then we'd strap on 45s, and I had two sailors, two DKs, I'd call them, and we'd give them carbines and a 45, and we'd call the bank and make an appointment and say we want 150 or 120 or whatever it was, and have that cash ready, and we'd go into town, and we had military escort, which wasn't much of an escort. It was just a vehicle, and sometimes it was a truck, sometimes it was a car, and we'd go to the bank, get the cash, and then go back to the ship.
So what's $200,000 look like? Is that like a briefcase, or is that a couple I'm trying to envision how you walk out of the bank.
Well, you walk out with a briefcase.
Okay.
And it was in a briefcase, but there were cloth bags. Okay. And in different sizes and shapes and so forth. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. And then we go put it back on the ship in my safe, and that was it. And I had a couple of safes.
Incredible. So do you think there's a lot you learned from the military with structure and the finance that you were able to then apply to your hot sauce business?
No, it was just me. It was the people, really. And then, getting familiar with the system and how the supply of food and those things go, and where to go to basically move it through the system.
Wow. And
so that was educational. But the military was good for us because any business was good. And of course, even today, any business is good. But in those days, when you have such a small business, anything is even more important. And so we just took advantage of whatever meager opportunities were there. It was just to hear and see what is available. You know, if you go to Walmart or if you go to Amazon, I mean, the distribution today, of course, first of all, the volume has grown so much. And then second of all, you know, all of the transportation and the systems have been streamlined so much. Like I said, and we were talking before, I mean, a lot of the people that were in business in those days are no longer in business. And the area, the layer of distribution is no longer there that we had back then. And so, yeah.
What year or years do you think, in your opinion, did your business hit an inflection point to just skyrocket?
The 60s.
The 60s.
No question about it. Yeah, the 60s, you know, when things really hit a stride, and yeah.
Built on Chicago and everything else.
Right, right. Well, I mean, then, you know, with the way the transportation industry had developed and everything, I mean, we were hitting the big population centers really easy. I mean, our first big population center that we, you know, tapped was Chicago. And then it went from there to where, you know, we were getting, you know, into Los Angeles, into New York, into Philadelphia, all up on the East Coast, and as well as Miami, Atlanta, and cities like that. So, yep.
So you sold the brand Louisiana Hot Sauce. What year was that?
That was, I think it was, I mean, we were just talking about that. I think it was 15.
15.
Yeah, 2015.
So what have you been working on since that?
Well, of course, I had a non-compete, and so I mean, I always respected that, and I had a contract with them. I stayed with them for 2 years and ran the business, helped them run the business for 2 years, and that was all very nice and everything. And then, of course, we had a number of other brands. I mean, I still had a substantial business that I was working with these other brands. And so we worked that through, and then after, you know, my non-compete, Matt and his dad came along and asked for some help, and so I agreed. And so I thought it had some very good potential. They had come up with the original brands, the Creole, mainly the Perique. I don't think they were actually doing the Creole handshake very much then. And we put that on the market, as well as developed the Perique. And so since then, we've done a number of things to develop that business.
Wow, wonderful. Tell me about your jacket. What are you wearing there?
Well, this is the Hall of Fame jacket for hot sauce. It's the New York Hall of Fame of hot sauce. And this is one of my proudest accomplishments. It has a true meaning. And what I like and the proudest of it is that the award for the Hall of Fame for that is voted on by all of the hot sauce people. And so it's for the people who have done the most for developing the hot sauce industry, and that's why I'm proud of it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What year were you awarded that? Or inducted, I'm sorry.
Oh boy, you're really getting me with these year questions here. But let's see, I think it was, boy, I should know that right off the top of my head, but it's been a few years. Probably, yeah, it's 2000. Not 2000, I think it was the year 2000.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I'll get boned up on that. And yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I love seeing that, and that's really, really special.
Right. Now, some other people got this jacket too. It wasn't just me. I'm not going to mention any names, but yeah, the industry as a whole has been really a haven for good people. And there's so many good people in the industry that have contributed in many different ways to growing the industry.
Yeah.
I tell you, my best story is in fact, we were talking about it earlier today, is the little people, and they weren't necessarily little in size, but the people growing hot sauce in Manhattan in apartment, in these small apartments they live in there, in windows. In other words, they would try to grow a pepper and get the sunlight to grow the pepper in an apartment window in Manhattan. I mean, when you think of that, and just try to imagine how the hell did you do that?
Yeah.
And I was talking to these people, and I said, you people are the real heroes in this business.
Yes.
I mean, if you like hot sauce and peppers that much that you're willing to go to that trouble, you talk about trouble. I mean, you're having to move the plant, the little pepper plant, from, maybe 3 feet or 2 feet or 1 foot at a time to catch the rays of the light to grow the pepper every day.
Yeah.
And they're doing it. I mean, if you can believe it, it's one thing to think about it, but there's another thing to actually do it, and they're doing it.
Yeah.
And I've talked to these people, and and they're serious about it, needless to say, to go to that much trouble, and they're not really put out or complaining about the fact that they have to do it that way to make the pepper,
Sure.
the pepper plant grow, and they do whatever the fruit that they want that they actually harvest from that plant. But it's being done.
Yeah.
And you see things like that, and talk to people, and it's memorable. And to say nothing, it's kind of inspirational.
Yeah. What's your take on the new parts of the industry with these new hot peppers coming out and these crazy sauces? Are you a fan? Do you just like it for the industry? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, my thoughts are great. I tell you, I think it's really, really wonderful. The work that's being done is just incredible, and the accomplishments, what they're actually doing with that is so valuable. I mean, they're having a lot of success. I mean, there's some smart people out there taking advantage of these new techniques that are making the hot sauce industry grow even more. And and there's every sign to believe that it's going to continue. And because they're attracting, first they're achieving more success, and then they're attracting more attention from that success, and that's attracting more talent, which is what it's all about. I mean, it's these smart people that come in and figure out all this new stuff, and it's paying off. And those accomplishments are being incorporated into these sauces and processes, which is having such a positive effect. First of all, it's getting new consumers to the industry. And then secondly, the new techniques, manufacturing techniques, are increasing the actual earnings potential for the products, and lots of other little progress in the thing. But it's all of that progress is being pushed up into the industry that is making it really grow and prosper like it is today.
So what's your best memory from the early days of Louisiana hot sauce?
Well, probably getting my first order.
Really?
Yeah, and that was a big accomplishment, and so that's my best memory.
And who was that to? Do you remember?
Well, it was to a customer in Chicago, surprisingly
Really?
enough. Yeah, it's a retail store, and these guys had really been the biggest volume hot sauce customer in Chicago, and they kept a display of hot sauce on the floor all the time.
Wow.
And they just moved a lot of hot sauce. And of course we were new, and it was a situation where, you know, when you got turned down in those days, you know, you were told it was kind of rough. I mean, they told you, you know, we don't have that here, meaning my sauce, and we don't have that here, and we're not going to have it here. And so it was a little bit of a challenge to change that guy's mind.
Yeah.
And and it called for a little celebration when we got the first order from those people.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that was just one of those things, and that was it.
So a lot of hot sauces, a lot of hot sauce companies here in New Iberia. Did you know each other, or can you break out kind of a family tree, if you will, of how everyone knew each other?
It wasn't necessarily a family tree at all, everybody knew everybody, and we would swap things. I mean, we had some companies that we were closer to that we would lend things to. Everybody runs out of something from time to time, and you always have a friendly relationship with one company or another company, or maybe two or three companies, that when you ran out of salt, you got some from this guy. When you ran out of pepper, you got some. When you ran out of glass bottles, you got some from this guy. So yeah, I mean, we would do that, and that's how we got along with the different other people. And now some companies ran out less than others, but everybody ran out of something.
Yeah.
And that was the big equalizer, and that's where it made all the sense in the world, almost to the point of necessity, to be on good terms in the industry. And so, yeah, that was the equalizer. And you know, that's what made everybody get along. And it didn't matter if they were your cousin or your aunt or your uncle, or what, didn't matter anything. If you were out of bottles, believe me, everybody was the same.
Wow. What do you have as recommendations if someone wanted to start today getting into the hot sauce world, making, selling? What would you tell them? Well,
get ready for a long road. It's not easy, and you have to get used to a mindset. And in agricultural products, you have what is called the farm to market cycle that you have to be.
Farmer market cycle?
Farm to market. Farm to market. That's this 12-month cycle. Okay. You know, you go to the banking industry, you go to the car manufacturing business, say you go to General Motors or someplace. I mean, they're manufacturing the same way all day, 24/7, you know, and it's never changing. In the food industry, I mean, you got to wait till the plants grow and to harvest them, and you got a 12-month usually cycle between one crop and the next crop, and that's how it is for the most part in the pepper business. And so you automatically slow down, and by those limits, because of the agricultural aspect of the industry. And so things happen a little slower. Today, everybody is lacking patience and understanding in some cases. I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people, they want stuff today. They don't want to wait. You know, when you say wait till next year, I mean, they're just saying, hey, look, forget it. You know, we're not going to do that. And so the food industry is low margins, and it takes a lot of time. So you got to be patient. You got to be ready for that. And then it's capital intensive. And so you got to have a lot of patience and some certain amount of money, and you got to have a lot of brains. You got to have a good education. You've got to understand money and economics. And so it's good to have maybe a partner or two, and you know, eventually with different, you know, talents that they bring. One of them might be money.
Money talent?
Exactly. Another one might be expertise, and you know, it's just different things that you need. But the hot sauce business is a complex business, and you need money and talent. And so it's just that simple, and you need a hell of a good idea.
Yeah.
In fact, 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. Incredible. Well, before we wrap up, do you have anything? I mean, that was a great close, but anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it. I mean, you've asked a lot of good questions here, and you know, there's nothing else that I'd like to add other than the business is very rewarding. The thing that's the most rewarding in the business is the great people that are in it, and you know, it makes the hard work that is demanded of the hot sauce business worthwhile. Is getting to know the great people that are in it, and there's, you know, if you're patient enough and do it, I mean, there's some good rewards.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for opening up your home to us today. This is, like I said, been such a treat.
Sure.
And we hope to talk to you again in the future.
Great. Well, we're very happy to, you know, meet you all and have you here, and I hope you come back and enjoy our little part of the world, and enjoy having you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Thanks for listening to The Hot Sauce Show. Be sure to follow us here and on socials to stay up to date on future episodes.